These are my notes on Hyrum Andrus's book, Personal Glimpses of the Prophet Joseph Smith. Okay. Yep. This book adds to quotes from the book They Knew the Prophet, another brilliant text. One family was promised by Joseph Smith that the mob wouldn't hurt them. 3 torches were put to their home, but none would light the home on fire. One boy was clubbed all the way home because he believed in the prophet Joseph Smith. This boy also was a target for an assassin to drown in a river, but the assassin said the boy could go after the boy insisted that he had done no evil to him. Joseph Smith once quickly disguised himself when a mob approached as an old lady to be able to escape from the mob. Joseph Smith, as a general, rode a black horse and wore a tall feather in his hat as he led men sword in hand. Once Joseph Smith entered the room, you knew it. His gaze seemed to pierce you. His humility and innocence shone. Joseph quoted scriptures in Greek, Hebrew, Latin, and German. Joseph told people, "You don't know me and never will till you have seen me weighed in the balance." Joseph said, "I wish I could release my feelings. There are things I could tell you which some on the stand would kill me were I to speak." Hold on. General. Okay. Joseph had 24 youth. Joseph had 24 youth who could go up a mount and speak with God face to face, as did Moses on Mount Sinai, to help find the saints a place to locate. One boy prayed whether he should accept the calling. When he was asked to be a part of the group, he stood to object, and a voice told him to stay and rest a while, though no one was close to him to speak it. He was also shown a vision of the USA as it would be in the future, entirely as the Garden of Eden, and other travels he was to do were shown to him, including how he would have to pass by guards who would ask him passwords, which would come to him by inspiration as he approached the guards. "The gospel gathers up some of the meanest creatures of this creation, and some of the finest," said Joseph. Joseph, after he had given authority to the 12, said, "I'm going to rest now a while." They didn't quite understand what he meant. On the way to Carthage, Joseph rode over to his farm workers and said, "How are you, boys?" He noticed them even in this dire moment. He loved to be among the farm animals. He was a lover of a good horse. He told those soldiers that were marching him to Carthage, "Gentlemen, these are my friends." He told them their names, shook the hands of the farm workers, and bid them a good day and farewell. The farm workers of Joseph called him the most frank man they had ever known. Joseph rebuked someone, and the person wanted to fight him, so Joseph went ahead and fought him. Egyptian mummies were kept in Joseph's home. A boy would sit in the prophet's lap and look in the Urim and Thummim. Porter Rockwell would come to Joseph's home, and if he would wave his hat, it meant all is well. If not, it meant a mob was coming. There was a bookshelf that would appear full. They would put such in front of a cellar in which Joseph would go hide. Sarah Elizabeth Holmes, a young gal, would sit on the porch of Joseph's home and watch for mobs. Not in the form of a dove, but the sign of a dove, did the Holy Ghost ascend upon Jesus at his baptism. Joseph said the German rendition of the Bible is better than the St. James Version. At the time of the Tower of Babel, when the tongues were confounded, each tongue had a part of the pure language, and when the pure language is restored, it will have a part of each language, as we now know them, says Joseph. Joseph said, "I am an innocent man. If I have to go, I will go like a man. If I have to die, I will die like a man. Hey, it's all right. When Joseph was going to be in a very dangerous circumstance, he was going to go into hiding, but his friends didn't want him to. So he said, "If my life is of no worth to my friends, it is of no worth to myself." And he didn't go into hiding. Joseph was so considerate and manly and sympathetic, you couldn't help but like him. Joseph would play ball with the boys for a considerable amount of time. Then he would say, "Well, boys, I must go home and work." Then the rest of the boys would go at the same time. This showed his considerable influence. Joseph said the Constitution of the U.S. is a part of his religion, and a good part, too. Joseph said, if needed, he could go and lead the able-bodied men, and the world would see what they could do. Joseph said, "Brethren, if any of you have anything against me, come and tell me, and make it right. Do not be backward. Come publicly or privately. Be satisfied that I talked to you about anything against me." Joseph said, "When your enemies call for quarters, be sure you give them the same, and you'll have power over the world." Joseph said, "If you're called to fight, make sure to not stain your garments with the blood of women and children." Joseph said, "Our persecutors are like a wheel of fortune, and if that wheel is on top of us right now, being persecuted presently, then eventually the wheel will roll on and we will be on top of it." Joseph asked the people, "Are you willing to die for me?" They all said yes. Joseph said, "I am your father. Shall I not be your father?" They all said yes. Joseph said, "I am willing to lay down my life for you." Joseph said, "I have unsheathed my sword, and it shall never again be sheathed, until there be vengeance upon all of our enemies. The earth shall tremble, and with the earthquakes shall the earth be shaken, and the seas will heave themselves beyond their bounds. These things shall be brought against your enemies, for your preservation as the people of the Lord. Now I deliver myself up to their hands." One man was about to die. He was carried on a sheet to a place to be baptized. He knew if he could be baptized, he could live. When he was baptized, he felt as good as he ever did. For D&C 104, it was a revelation Joseph got. Someone walked in with Joseph in their arms, he being limp. Joseph was in a revelation at the time. One family borrowed to Joseph $50. They told Joseph, "If we don't go, then we won't need the money." Joseph said, "It is the will of the Lord that you should go. I do not know how we will get the money, but it will come." Joseph was able to sell a half-acre lot and said, "I told you I would give you the money." Joseph said Joseph would teach, and his face would seem almost transparent. Joseph said, "If I would make known what God has revealed to me, some of those present who pretend to be my friends would seek my life." Joseph was teaching so powerfully, even the young boys came to hear. A policeman came to take them away, but Joseph said, "Let the boys alone. They will learn something they will never forget." It's from the Journal of Harvey Harris Clough. Joseph had the people travel, sometimes with arms, sometimes without. They didn't travel on Sundays, but stopped and held meetings. A very important lesson for our time. Joseph prophesied that the cholera was going to come upon them as a scourge right before it came. He tried to get rid of it. One man was screaming a prayer so all could hear. Joseph told him to not pray like that, braying like a jackass, and said, "Don't ever let me hear you praying like that again." The man went away much upset. Joseph said, "When a man crosses a place where much blood has been shed, he will feel depressed and uncomfortable." The company found 3 rattlesnakes and were going to kill them, but Joseph stopped them, saying that the lion will lie down with the lamb when man ceases to wage war with the reptiles. Okay. When the man ceases to wage war with the reptiles, then the serpent's disposition would change. They carried the snakes across the creek on sticks. During the journey, they didn't kill any kind of game unless they needed it. There was a rattlesnake by the head of one sleeping. The folks gathered around were going to kill it, but the man woke. I think it was Joseph, who woke and said, "No, you shan't kill it, for he and I have had a good nap together. I'll protect him." Some were jesting with swords. One cut the skin from another's hand. Joseph told them to be careful and control their spirits, and never to hurt one another in such situations. Joseph got sweet bread from a cook, while the others got sour bread. Joseph reproved the cook, and chose rather to eat the sour with the rest. Some said they didn't think a college could change people as much as did this camp, the Zion's camp. Whenever spies came to the camp, they picked out the weakest one in the camp to quiz. They found what they thought to be turtle eggs. Joseph said, "Don't eat them. They could be of a poisonous reptile like snake eggs." They ate them anyway and got sick. Joseph had a faithful watchdog. People wanted to kill it for barking in the night. Joseph said, "I'll give you a sampling of the spirit that is among this camp. If a dog bites them, they will want to kill it. If a man offends them, they will want to kill him. That is the spirit which is keeping this world bad." Martin Harris, playing with a black snake to show how he had power over serpents, as the scriptures said, well, he was bitten. Joseph said, "Don't do that. That such protection is void when we egg on the danger." The promise was only for when a man of God was accidentally bitten. At times, they had to wade through mud and water waist deep, and some even without stockings. They usually ate mush, and once, when there was some ham, but not enough for everyone, they didn't use it. They would gather dry leaves to make for a bed. They would wet the tent so that water would run over it. Water ran over some of their blankets, and they were 6 inches in water. 250 men came to attack the camp, but a huge storm came. One was killed by lightning, another had his hand torn off by a horse. The men of Zion's camp had all their pistols working despite the rain. Had the storm been as strong in Zion's camp, falling branches would have no doubt killed many of the members of the camp. The enemies fled. One man was more concerned with his food and his family than the welfare of Zion, and was rebuked. The appearance of Joseph was very kind, noble, and compassionate. When people would hear Joseph explain the Bible, they would wonder why they had never considered it that way, in that light. When Joseph would wrestle a certain man, the other guy would win when it was Joseph, the man, he was wrestling. But when it was Joseph, the prophet, he was wrestling. When Joseph was thus under the Spirit of the Lord, Joseph would always win. Joseph shook hands with the members of Zion's camp and carefully took care to their comforts with a happy smile and a cheerful countenance. Joseph was the busiest man in the camp, yet when he saw a child, he would turn and say a word of comfort to them. Now, which camp we're referring to here, I'm not sure, because there's children. So, anyway, suffice it to go on. Joseph would go to a little boy in the camp and say, "Is there no place for you, my boy? If not, we must make one." Joseph was fond of children. He would not cross a child without speaking to the child. Even if one was across the street, if it was alone, he would cross the street and speak with the child. Joseph also helped the aged with his strong arm. They had come across a book they were going to write the history of the church on, well-bound, good pages, but they counted the pages it had to see if it would be cheaper to buy the pages in a ream. This shows how poor they were. They also recorded revelations on scrap paper when they couldn't afford other paper. One page lined, another not lined, one white, one yellow, one torn, etc. See the Madsen Joseph Smith lectures, Truman G. Madsen. One wanted to work. Joseph told him, "I'll give you work enough for 20 men," when the man asked for work. In the middle of a temple dedication prayer, the angel Peter came inside to approve of such. They felt an astonishing influence come over them during the prayer, a swift thing, which Joseph explained was Peter entering the temple for such. Some who had bodily afflictions had glorious visions that they basically forgot about their bodily afflictions. One saw a vision of a grave opened before him, a grave opened up for him. He was very ill at the time of the vision, but then in the vision the earth filled up the grave instead of himself. From that time he quickly recovered. The faithful in the church would inspire their children with much respect for the prophet. One boy at age 14, when the prophet Joseph was murdered, this 14-year-old boy felt that he was willing to lay down his life for the kingdom as well, and he felt that way the rest of his life. It was a privilege to look upon Joseph, a man who had seen angels. Wicked men hunted Joseph like a wild doe in the mountains, and he had to flee before them into holes and rocks and dens of the earth. Joseph said to speak in your natural tone, don't do gestures that are unnatural. He taught that if we are all obedient, the word of God is truth, so we are all one man, and like the angels have communion with them. Phrenology Joseph thought of, but was rebuked by the Lord. God said it's of the devil. It was the works of the devil, and there was no reality in such a science. Joseph taught that this is not God's first world, for Jesus teaches that he does nothing but what he has seen his Father do, so he must have seen the Father creating worlds. Joseph said it's not a vice for you to defend yourself when your country is attacked. He heard that one in coming to rescue him, his horse got hurt and was breathing loud. Joseph said, I will yet compensate you for that service. 2 men had arrested Joseph and abused his rights and so forth. He had them stay for dinner before he would let them leave, and he introduced them to his children and treated them just like anybody. Joseph told the brethren that it was time that the prophecy of the hearts turning to their fathers for such to come to pass. He told them to pray for it until they receive it. One brother prayed for it each morning at a time, set apart for such, and he eventually, a feeling encompassed him about how he is nothing compared to God, and a conviction that to get salvation he needs to be exactly obedient. One man was getting after his cow. He said, Get on, you old fool. Joseph happened to be riding by. Joseph got off his horse and came and patted the head of the cow and said, You aren't a fool, are you, little missy? The man never forgot that, and it would always make him cry when he told it to his grandchildren. Joseph said that when the earth was created, it was too big. In the days of Peleg, it was divided, and then again, when the 10 tribes went to the land of the north, it was divided. Joseph said that the earth will come into contact with more matter, another planet or something, that will cause it to reel. Joseph loved fish and the outdoor life. One man had an unlawful cow. He asked Joseph about it. Joseph said to return the cow to its rightful owner, and soon you'll have cows more than you can feed. A storm was coming once when Joseph was preaching. He told those in attendance to just stand up and that everything would be all right. They did so, and the sun came out and all was well. Joseph had a cheerful countenance and always seemed to be happy. When Joseph died, Brigham Young stood to speak. As he did, the voice of Joseph was heard from him. Other accounts state that the face of Joseph was also seen. Joseph had 48 lawsuits against him, and none of them could bring any wrong against him. Joseph went to a cave where there were as many plates as could fill wagon loads. The sword of Laban was on the wall. It was bright as day. They didn't know if the sunlight was there or if it was artificial light. They didn't think about it. Joseph said, "The good love me, weak and humble as I am, and the evil hate me. I will lead people to salvation if they will let me. I'll take them by the hand like a child and lead them like a father in the way that will bring them to salvation." Joseph got revelation line upon line until he had everything he needed for the salvation of the people. One man spoke of how it was worth traveling 400 miles to see the prophet. Some went to find Joseph, and they thought he would just be sitting in some sanctum giving out spiritual blessings and instruction for the kingdom. But they were told that when they went to his house that he was half a mile away chopping firewood. They had forgotten the temporal part. When they saw him, when he saw them, he said, "Brethren, I'm glad to see you." He threw down his axe and said, "Boys, take care of my axe." Joseph Smith told Joseph Young how Sidney Rigdon will go to hell until the day of redemption, since he's always trying to take my place. One man had to work his crops before he could go help with the publication of the Book of Mormon. He woke in the morning to go do that, and all his cropping was done. He didn't know who did it, but it was just done, just as if he would have done it. I don't remember if that was Harris or who, but it's an amazing account. As they were departing, there was an old man sweating, and he said, "Good morning, gentlemen. It's a warm morning." He had a brown woolen cloth suit, was heavy set, and had a white beard. They invited him to come with him, but he said, "I am going to Cumorah," and then he disappeared. On the way home with the plates, Joseph got smacked by someone with a club demanding the plates. Joseph knocked the man down and ran home. Joseph moved the plates from being under the floor. The day before, someone came and tore up his floor, looking for them. One man said of Joseph, "Damn him! Angels appearing to this day and age, damn him! He ought to be tarred and feathered for telling such a lie." Abraham Lincoln said, "If you should tar and feather all the liars, you should soon run out of the funds to purchase all the material." He said how it doesn't matter what people believe, that it doesn't hurt you. Joseph said that he was told to quit the company with the money diggers, that they were evil people, and that he must have nothing more to do with them. He must not lie or swear or steal. Of course, that's not saying that he was lying, swearing, and stealing. It's just saying that was the instruction. And that's a interesting thing to think about. Is our employment a righteous situation? Joseph was instructed that he was to look in the spectacles to see that man that would assist him, and he did, and he saw Martin Harris. Martin Harris said, "You ought to be careful." Joseph told him, "I saw you standing before me as plainly as anything." Harris then said, "If it's the devil's work, I want nothing to do with it. But if it is the God's work, I'll help you get all the money you can to help put it forward. If the Lord shows me that this is His work, you can have all the money you need to put it forward for me." Martin prayed, telling God that if he would make it known to him whether this was the work of God, he would give all he had to put it forward. At that point, it was made known to him that this work was true. And he did. In translating the Book of Mormon, a sentence would appear. Joseph would read it. It would be written by a scribe. If it was written correctly, the sentence would disappear, and another would appear. If not written correctly, the sentence would disappear. And I'll just say there's some controversy on that point. Nature of the translation, there's a couple of schools of thought. But for now, I'm just going to go on here. Almost finished here. During the translation of the Book of Mormon, they would go out and throw stones into a river for exercise. There was a stone Martin Harris found that looked like the one they were using to translate. Harris put it in place of the stone they were using to translate. Joseph looked down at the translation table with the stone on it for a time. He was usually quick, but this time he paused. He told Harris, "All is as dark as Egypt. What have you done?" Harris said he would replace the stone with a fake one to stop the mouths of fools who were claiming that Joseph had been memorizing the sentences. Now again, I'll say there's some controversy on that. Where those translation accounts came from, and the nature of using completely the Urim and Thummim for the translation process, or a stone being involved. And I would suggest it was the Urim and Thummim, but I'm going to continue on here. The Spirit is able to make known in a short amount of time. The world thinks that Joseph's publications are false because there's so much material in them, and normally it takes a long time to learn information. As they got visions, they spoke of how doubt fled forever, never to rise again. They said the words of the angel who came to give them the priesthood were so lovely and powerful that no mortal could speak that way. One word from the mouth of the Savior, from the bosom of eternity, strikes all the evils down. That's the end of my highlights, my notes from my reading of the Personal Glimpses of the Prophet Joseph Smith by Hyrum Andrus. And, of course, read the book. And these notes weren't covering everything. It's been a delight to review this.